Okay, let's unpack this. We're taking a deep dive into a YouTube video today. It's from Dinika Marie Dopey Discussions, and the title is pretty direct. Men are living alone and loving it. Women messed up.
Right.
So our goal here is to really get into the viewpoint, understand what's being presented about why some men, even younger guys, are choosing to live solo and, well, seem pretty happy about it.
And the source material, it's got a few layers. There's the creator's own monologue, her take on things.
Yeah, and then there's this clip showing a 29-year-old guy's Friday night alone.
And the comments on that, plus another clip, actually, with advice on how you could supposedly live alone earning, what, $15, $20 an hour.
Exactly. So it's kind of looking at it from a few angles. Let's jump in and see what really stands out.
Okay. Well, the first thing, I think, the central argument from the creator, she starts off saying that young men, guys who look like they'd be, great husbands, great fathers.
The kind you'd expect to settle down, maybe?
Exactly. Those guys. She's saying they're opting out.
Yeah.
Choosing to stay single, live alone.
And she doesn't just state it as a fact. She frames it as a problem, right? Calls it terribly bad for future generations. There's a real sense of alarm there.
Oh, definitely. A sense of alarm. And she points the figure pretty clearly. She argues this trend is happening because of women's behavior.
Directly blaming women's actions for driving men away.
Yeah. I mean, she says there is something very telling about our behaviors and the things that we have done to these men. It's quite explicit.
Wow. Okay. And does she describe the type of men she thinks are making this choice?
She does. She calls them stand-up solid brothers. And she goes on to describe them, as providers, protectors, wise, intelligent, studious type of brothers. It's a very specific, almost idealized picture.
Right. And with that description comes a warning, I gather.
A stark warning, yeah. She says women should be very afraid if these particular men, the solid ones, are checking out.
So high stakes involved, according to her.
Very high stakes. And this ties into her views on, well, traditional gender roles. She states pretty plainly that as women, we are not built and designed to work hard.
Oh, okay. So what is the role then, in her view?
To be a helpmeet, a helpmate, not the provider. That's the quote. It's fundamental to her whole argument, it seems.
And connecting that back, if these providers are checking out and women aren't designed to be providers.
Her prediction follows logically from that premise. Women will end up having to fend for yourselves by yourselves and struggle.
And she sees evidence of that happening already.
She suggests so, yeah. She links it to observations of women struggling financially right now.
Then the video seems to shift focus a bit, comparing men's and women's priorities.
Right. She draws this contrast, arguing that many women are chasing the luxury life, but more the appearance of it, the look-like, as she puts it.
Just looking the part, not actually having the substance.
Yeah, that's the implication. Whereas men, she claims, are focused on actually having the stability, planning for the future, building something real.
And this difference in focus leads to what?
Well, according to the creator, it leads to a situation where women are, and this is another quote, now we're out here crying, talking about should've, could've, would've, begging for a man's attention, a man's affection, and a man's help.
And the men aren't giving it.
Apparently not, because in her view, these women would just ultimately become a distraction for his life.
That's quite a statement. So it's a very stark picture she's painting.
Extremely stark.
Yeah.
And then to kind of illustrate this, the video shows that clip of the 29-year-old guy.
Right, the Friday night scene. What happens there?
It's pretty mundane, actually. Some self-care. He gets takeout Chipotle, specifically.
Okay.
And then just chills at home. His place looks, nice, clean.
Seems pretty normal for a Friday night alone.
Exactly. But the creator uses that normalcy. She comments that this guy doing fine on his own could have been someone's husband. He's independent. And she contrasts his ability to just, grab a Chipotle meal with the women she mentioned earlier who are supposedly struggling financially. It's a direct comparison of self-sufficiency.
And she mentions his stuff too, right? Like his truck.
Yeah, she points out his Ford truck, his nice home, even details like a well-kept bathroom with a lit mirror. It all feeds into this image of the self-sufficient man who's doing well.
Got it. So the core message isn't that these men can't find partners, but
that they don't want to. That's the key assertion.
Yeah.
She says if he wanted to, he could have one of them chicks laid up with him tonight, but they don't even want it.
So it's presented as an active choice.
Absolutely. And she pushes back against any idea that these men might be lonely or losers, saying, no, they're living 10 times better than y'all. Chilling and not even caring to go out there and find a woman.
Okay. And what about the comments on that specific video clip? Do they support this idea?
Overwhelmingly, yes.
Hmm.
The big theme that comes through is peace.
Peace.
Yet, like one comment with thousands of likes says, I see an employed man with full head of hair getting into his Raptor after treating himself to Chipotle and going home to a very nice, very quiet, clean home to decompress. Looks like a dub to me, brother.
A dub, meaning a win.
Right. Others are simpler. Bro, that's what you call peace. Don't let nobody ruin that for you. Or, yeah, this ain't loneliness. It's just peace.
So the audience watching that clip is interpreting it the same way the creator is framing it?
It certainly seems that way. And there's this one comment, man, this piece is dangerous because it's addicting. Nothing like being able to come home and do your own thing. I've been there.
Addicting peace. That's a powerful phrase.
It is, and the creator picks up on that.
Yeah.
She suggests this peaceful, comfortable life men build for themselves becomes something they don't want to disrupt. They don't want the perceived drama or cost of a relationship.
Which brings her back to her original concern.
Exactly. The lack of future fathers, future husbands, because these men are finding contentment, maybe even addiction, in solitude.
Then she pivots to a more direct critique of women.
Extremely direct. She just lays it out. A lot of these women out there, they're not a good deal.
Not a good deal.
And she uses that really, really harsh comparison we noted earlier.
Without.
Yeah. Only a crackhead would be okay with dealing with a lot of these chicks today. I mean, it's presented as a very blunt assessment in the source.
Wow. And she lists specific negative traits.
A whole list, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't cook, don't clean. Bad attitudes. Needy, greedy, broke, desperate, irresponsible, not focused on self-improvement. It's quite the indictment.
So from the perspective presented, why would a man want that?
That's precisely her point. She frames it as a sacrifice for the man. To get involved with you would mean to sacrifice myself, my finances, my peace, my happiness, my well-being. I don't want it.
A complete non-starter, basically. Does she make any exceptions?
She does briefly acknowledge, sort of in contrast, women who are doing life right. So it's not presented as all women, but certainly a large segment in her view.
Okay. Then we get to the second video excerpt, the one with the practical advice.
Right. Advice for men living alone. Specifically on a $15, $20 an hour wage. How to make it work, how to flourish even.
And what kind of advice is offered there? Seems like a tough wage to live alone on.
It is. The advice is very focused on frugality and hard work. Things like, don't eat out, stick to cheap staples, rice, oatmeal, peanut butter and jelly, spaghetti.
Basic stuff.
Very basic. Also, avoid car payments. Get a used car or use public transport. Find a job with overtime potential. Budget obsessively. Track every penny.
Makes sense. What about housing? That's usually the biggest expense.
Yeah, the advice is to keep rent at $1,000 or less, which is tough in many places, and look into income-based housing options.
And boosting income.
Side hustles. Uber, DoorDash, maybe something online like social media management, whatever it takes to bring in extra cash.
Okay, so it's a roadmap for disciplined, frugal living. How does the main creator comment on this advice?
She uses each point to reinforce her earlier arguments, often by drawing contrasts. Well, with the cooking, she notes, these men are cooking for themselves, and then questions if women can or do. With the cars, she praises the men's financial sense, contrasting it with, in her view, women wanting flashy, new, depreciating cars.
I see. So reinforcing the men are sensible, women are superficial theme.
Pretty much. Same with working hard. She highlights the men taking overtime and side hustles, linking it back to her idea that women aren't designed for that kind of grind.
In the budgeting.
Men are budgeting meticulously. Women, she implies, spend impulsively. Even the tough $1,000 rent target she acknowledges it's hard, but suggests women should be aiming for that too, implying they aren't willing to make those sacrifices.
So this whole segment on frugal living serves to show what?
That men are capable of strategic planning, discipline, and making it work on their own, even on a modest income. While in her narrative, many women are not doing the same.
It all feeds back into the main argument that men are choosing to be alone because relationships, as she portrays them, would just drag them down.
Precisely. That's the conclusion she draws. It leads to her final, very direct message to women.
What's that?
Ladies, y'all need to clean this up and come back to the table with something instead of saying that I am the table.
Wow. Bring something to the table, don't just be the table.
That's the message. And she ends by observing again how content and peaceful these men seem alone, which, from her perspective, is ultimately sad.
Sad because they aren't partnering up and forming families, presumably.
That seems to be the underlying sadness for her, yeah.
Okay, so summing up what we've pulled from this one source, it's a really strong viewpoint being presented. It suggests men are increasingly choosing solitude and are content with it.
And it directly attributes this trend to perceived negative behaviors and misplaced priorities among many women.
Contrasting that with men who are shown focusing on, peace, financial stability, self-reliance.
Exactly. Building their own lives, their own peace, and finding it preferable, maybe even addicting.
Yeah. And it's undeniable the opinions laid out in the video are intense, potentially controversial for sure. It's a very specific lens on relationships today.
Definitely offers a particular and critical perspective.
So what does this all mean? I mean, looking closely at this one YouTube video, it really gives you a lot to think about. Dynamics between people, individual choices.
It really does.
Raises some pretty pointed questions about expectations, what people are looking for, what they prioritize in life now.
And maybe it prompts a broader question. If we take these observations from the video at face value, just for consideration,
Right.
what larger societal shifts, beyond just individual choices, might be playing into this?
Right. What are the bigger forces at work?
And potentially, what are the long-term implications down the road for everyone, men and women?
Yeah, definitely some big questions to chew on. Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it gave you, the listener, some interesting viewpoints to consider and mull over.